bands, and we would see RSSI on each of the channels. There's no transmitters going at the moment, so we're not seeing anything, but we can scan the bands, and
2 megabytes of
we can go through the individual channels, and if we had a channel we wanted to get onto, we just click there, we jump onto that channel. So that's a quick way to see what channels are active and jump to that channel. And then finally we come to the settings. And here in the settings, we've got switching. This is the sort of diversity switching speed. It can be fast, slow, or off. You would typically use fast if you are in an indoor environment with lots of multipath. You would use slow if you're in an outdoor environment with not too much multipath, but you still want to switch like between your Omni and your patch antenna. And then you would turn it off if you only want to use a single antenna. For example, if you're doing a long range flight and you want to stay on like a big helical directional antenna and you don't want to ever switch off of it. The OSD menu option lets you determine whether you see the menu inside the goggles. You're probably going to want that on. It lets you just reach up and wiggle the joystick and select things without having to actually take your goggles off your head and turn them around and look at them. Show RSSI determines the position of the RSSI bars in the screen. So at the upper left, you'll have RSSI bars that show your signal strength, and you can sort of shuffle that around the screen or even turn it off. Failsafe switch is one of the more interesting features that the Wildfire brings to the table. So Wildfire, TrueDX, TBS Fusion, and of course RapidFire all do a thing called sync reconstruction. And when sync reconstruction is working right, it prevents that screen roll where the screen just kind of goes bloop, 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 and you get super disoriented. But when it goes wrong, the screen can kind of just become offset and stay there. And a real quick screen roll could like mess you up, but the screen going, you're just guaranteed to crash. So the way the Wildfire deals with that is when RSSI gets low and there's liable to be a lot of like corrupted sync pulses, then it just turns off the sync reconstruction and it goes back to standard diversity. This is something that RapidFire has really struggled with. And I think what's happening is that RapidFire is trying really hard to do a really good job with the sync reconstruction, and it is very sensitive to the sync pulses being inconsistent. And let's face it, guys, the cameras that we're working with they're cheap. And sometimes they're just not up to snuff. And it confuses RapidFire, and then it freaks out. Now, RapidFire does have a setting, the sync lock time. And if you're having this problem with RapidFire, I recommend you set the sync lock time to short. The default is way too long, and it's sort of disabling of sync lock and failing over to a better mode. It takes way too long to happen. If you set the sync lock to short, it pretty much, but not 100%, solves the issue. I think the question of Wildfire versus RapidFire versus the other ones is this. Because here's the thing. None of these other modules ever really have this problem the way that with RapidFire, it can happen even at close range and at high RSSI. The trade-off is, though, is RapidFire just that much better at holding on to the signal? So you're getting better performance, but also sometimes it screws up? Well, that's a question that you can answer for yourself when we go to the field tests. Speaking of the field tests, this is how I do my field tests. This is a Fat Shark HDO goggle. I use it only for these field tests. It has not been beat up or beat around. It is in pristine showroom condition. I've got this 3D printed adapter that someone made for me. Thank you so much for that. And it holds a GoPro on the screen so I can record the actual screen of the goggles. And I want to tell you about this because you may see other people doing tests where they have a DVR. The DVR does not accurately represent the performance of the modules. I've been through this so many times. The module, Foxeer actually says that this module interfaces with the analog circuitry in the goggles so that it helps the goggle actually has some signal reconstruction circuitry in it. And Foxeer says that the module actually sort of helps the goggle do its job better. And if you are not putting this module into an actual goggle, you are not actually seeing the full performance of this module. You see some people do it with external screens, and you wonder, well, is that screen doing the same thing that a goggle would? The fact is that the only way to truly see how these modules perform in an actual goggle is to put them in a goggle and record the screen. And why doesn't everybody do that? Well, it's a pain in the ass. It's a huge pain in the ass to get this set up. DVRs are so much simpler to use, but more importantly, it's freaking expensive. This is a $400 goggle. I paid $400 for it. Thank you, patrons. And this is a $200 GoPro. I paid $200. This is $600 of gear, and I've got two of them, and that's $1,200. Thank you, patrons, for making it possible for me to do this. That is money that I'm happy to spend because it means I can bring you the best possible results. As tempting as it would be for me to just use a DVR, run 6 of these at once, fly one pack, and come home and drink a beer and be done for the day. Instead, I want to go out. And by the way, that's why you're only going to see these 2 at a time instead of like 4 or 6 at a time, because I only have 2 of this set up and I can't afford more. But anyway, let's get to the results. I wished I could see the rapid fire just to know how the test was going. I guess that keeps the test honest, since I ain't watching. And yes, as Joshua from the past suggested, I am not watching these in real time in the field. I'm just recording them on the GoPro. I am looking in a completely different set of goggles. I have no idea how these tests come out until, well, now when I'm watching them during editing. And I'm not going to weigh in on which is better because I have seen enough of this test to know that even though sometimes the results may appear completely obvious to me, your impression of which one has won may be different, and of course you are completely entitled to that. I do want to let you know as we go through this that there are so many steps I've taken to try to make these tests as good as possible. These goggles are brand new. They are set to the exact same contrast and brightness. The exposure on the GoPro is locked, so these pictures are just as comparable as they could possibly freaking be. I've even used the Owl RC SWR meter to test my antennas. SWR is not a perfect way to test antennas, but the Owl RC SWR meter is only about $100, and it's sort of reasonable way of testing whether any antenna is wildly different from any others, and that's what I do to try to make these results as consistent and accurate and trustworthy as possible. I'm of course doing this testing here in a parking garage because these big cement surfaces, cement is very absorptive of RF signals, yes, but the big flat surfaces are also very reflective, and especially when flying between 2 parallel surfaces like this, there's probably going to be more multipath. During this test, I'll just walk you through a little bit what I'm doing here. We're just flying straight down. There's very little obstruction or anything, so things stay clear. But as soon as I round the corner here, we go into an area where there is a massive amount of absorption of cement, concrete, whatever it is, between us. We are at 25 milliwatts here. We're at 25 milliwatts, and frankly, some of you guys are going to be shocked at how good this looks. At 25, can you imagine that we're flying in a car park with all this obstructions at 25 milliwatts? Yeah, I know, it's crazy. As we come back here, I make a left into this area. There is less absorption here. There are fewer walls, but I just want to give a chance to create some multipath bounces, but as it bounces off these walls and bounces around to where I'm at. So we'll fly basically the same path every time. There's a couple more tests to do, then we'll go back to the studio and we'll come up with our conclusion. It's going to be garbage. I'm not going to get all the way to the end for sure.
So since it doesn't say recover,
I mean, I'll get to the end, but as soon as I go around the corner, it'll die.
Because it does say recover storage.
Here we go.
So that means no photos are taking up space. So then why do I have...
Oh yeah, it's breaking up a lot more.
No storage supposedly.
But yeah, you're right, for sure. Wow. Well, Clearview held in. Did you lose it? Did you stay, or did you lose it? Let me go again. I'm gonna go again. Yeah, at 25, it was able to hold on. Barely. I can barely get to the very back.
So if
I'm
there's
losing
nothing
it now.
high quality, how the fuck do I have all my
Yeah.
stuff done then?
Yeah. I'm gonna go this way, and when I lose it, I'll make a left. Yeah, just barely.
Yeah, sure, I'll change it.
Very bad, very bad,
Where
very
you going
bad,
with
very bad, very bad. Coming back. Can barely see to come back. Okay.
that? All right.
Well, this is a great parking deck for this test, I'll tell you what. Now, I'm gonna come back in here and I'm gonna go around here. So hopefully we'll get some like bounces. Is that a person? No, it's just a car. This is a RunCam Nano. Yeah, it
So I can't recover
Isn't
any.
the
So
best.
how the fuck do 15 gigs of storage fill if
I don't know why Diatone put a nano camera on this.
If there's nothing to recover. Oh, this fucking stupid as fuck. Okay. Kilobytes, megabytes.
Ooh, it came back.
Because I have no memory of another storage, of course. Retards. Who is this McDonald? So I had 4 packs of white, so I used all 4 packs. Where the fuck am I going to? You can't afford it. You can't afford yourself in shit,
Well, if there's one thing I've learned from years of doing this kind of testing, it's that no matter how clear I think the results are, somebody out there is going to look at the exact same data and feel like it went the other way. So I'm not going to tell you which one won that test. You have eyes, you have a wallet, you saw the results, and you can decide for yourself which one you feel like earned your money. Setting aside the performance then, what else differentiates these guys? Features and price. Features wise, this guy is pretty middle of the road. I mean, it doesn't have features like the TrueD and the TrueD X have a lap timer built in. The TrueD X has Bluetooth and you can hook up to it with your phone to do firmware updates or even change the settings. These guys are pretty middle of the road. The Owl RC is about the same in terms of features. There's a quad finder, but they don't really have anything special. The TrueDs maybe are a little bit of a step up, and the TBS Fusion probably has the most features of all of them because it has Wi-Fi and integration with TBS Cloud and that whole thing. If you're in the TBS ecosystem, that's going to be a big plus for you. Oh, by the way, you're probably wondering why you didn't see the TBS Fusion in my test results. Oops, yeah, I forgot to tell you about that. So I dropped the TBS Fusion. And then I was like, oh, well, what? It was probably fine. And then I did all the tests, and all of the test results, the TBS Fusion did way worse, even than it did in my last test. So I felt like the only responsible thing to do was to not show you those results since I didn't feel like I could stand behind them. If you want to see how the TBS Fusion performs, I did a test with the TBS Fusion a few months ago. I'll put a link to it in the video description. You can see how it stacks up against all these other modules. Well, not the Wildfire, but I mean, you could extrapolate. As far as features go, the rapid fire probably goes down here with these guys. There's, basic stuff, but nothing special in the interface. Not very special in terms of features. And then in terms of price, the TrueD is going to be the cheapest at about $65. The Foxeer and the Owl RC are about $90. The TrueD X is about $120. The Fusion is about $120. Let's do it like that because they're about the same price. And then the Rapid Fire is about $150. So that's how they stack up. And now you should know everything you need to know in order to